Dating?
Courting?
Want to find out why we kiss dating hello? Stay tuned. Woo! Hi, I'm Josiah.
And I'm Bethany.
Welcome to One True Pair.
The not-so-common sense guide to godly relationships.
So, a lot of people think either courting or dating, one of the two extremes, one of them's got to be right, one of them's got to be wrong.
But in reality, you're both wrong.
And right.
Kind of. We struggled with this a lot at the beginning because one of us was set on courting.
She even left the state
But
because
the other
of
one,
it.
yeah, I did. I left
Ran
the state
away to Tennessee.
reestablish my mind on biblical principles of courting.
Well, that didn't work. Just kidding. I think the mindset of courting is a good one. Getting to know somebody that you're interested in the environment of a group of friends, can be super healthy, especially at the start of a relationship.
And some of you might say, but dating has a great mindset too, because you get to know someone one-on-one when they're not around all the other people. That might make them act differently than who they really are.
In dating versus courting, that maybe it's not just one ideology or one system of thinking of, oh, this is the way to go about it, or this is not the way to go about it. What if it's more of a heart issue?
If your heart behind dating is to get to know someone better so you know if they're a future spouse for you, that's great. But oftentimes the heart behind dating could be to get to be with someone alone. And that requires a lot more self-control, and it requires you to set up boundaries a lot sooner than the courting scene. Another issue with dating is that oftentimes when you start dating someone, you isolate yourself from everyone else that you know. So you only spend time with the person that you're dating, but you're never around your other friends.
And I think the same thing goes with courting too. There are also a lot of downsides to that model. It was mainly a reaction of the whole secular dating scene, and never really solved the problem. It just kind of got rid of dating and skipped directly to engagement, but you're still not spending any time together on your own. So it doesn't really get rid of the problem. It kind of ups the commitment and kind of lowers the amount that you're actually getting to know the other person. You really don't get to know them hardly any one-on-one until you're married, which is also kind of interesting in building a relationship. That really isn't setting it up for success either. So there are a lot of downsides to both. So what if one takes kind of the things that are good about each of them and kind of tries to look like the happy medium, the middle happy medium life? So what does that look like?
Well, it looks like what we call being God conscious and not sin conscious. So oftentimes in courting relationships, you see that people are overly sin conscious. So they're like, I can't do anything because it could be a sin, and I need to be aware and make sure that I don't sin, which is good because you don't need to sin. But if you're aware that God has you right where you are and that God is pleased with you and you know what God has and his expectations are for you, then you're not going to push the boundaries anyway. And in the same way with dating, I think it's much easier to have this unconscious mindset of, well, I pushed it this far, but that's not a sin technically. Nowhere in the Bible does it say that that's a sin. But being God conscious and knowing, is what I'm doing pleasing in God's sight right now, is a really healthy mindset, because if you're seeking to please God, you're going to make choices that are pleasing in his sight. So it all comes back to your heart.
Like Paul says, everything's permissible, but not everything is beneficial. Mm-hmm. So if it's not pushing you closer to God, then it's pushing you further away from God, or at least hindering your growth in your relationship with God. So the whole sin conscious, God conscious thing, instead of looking at it as how close can I get to the line until it's sin, rather the perspective needs to be, because we're in a relationship with God, because we love him, we naturally stay away from that. It's a respect, it's an honor thing, and ultimately it's being God conscious instead of sin conscious.
If you're in a relationship right now, it probably looks like, is what I'm doing pleasing in God's sight? Awesome. If not, how can I change that so I'm living in abundant life? Maybe you're single. I didn't mean to look at you. And if you're single, this probably looks like already adopting the mindset of pleasing God with all of your actions. You could already be adopting the mindset of, am I pleasing God with how I'm showing him to other people? Am I loving people how Jesus does? Am I showing them grace like Jesus does?
That doesn't mean that God's not already pleased with us, but rather that we have the choice whether we want to live in the abundant life that God's already prepared for us, if we want to live the steps that he's already ordered for us. So what does a proper healthy perspective look like on dating / courting / just building a godly relationship? What does it actually look like practically?
Maybe it looks like combining a little bit of both and spending time one-on-one and getting to know them one-on-one, but being wise in those times and not making choices that you're going to later regret.
Going the extra mile beyond just knowing that, we're not doing anything sketchy, that it's clear to everybody else too. So just being above reproach.
Also, spending time with other people, spending time with family, spending time with your friends, going to church together, being with your church family, going to events together where other people are going to be around, because you get to know more about the person and how they interact with other people.
And nowadays, dating in like the Christian circles too is pretty much like a marriage proposal, asking somebody out. Sort of the perspective that we have is that you want to see somebody that you've already in your friend circle identified as somebody who would be potentially a good teammate for life, could be your teammate for life. In the process of dating them and it being kind of sort of more getting to know them on a one-on-one, you're going to find out if it's, if they're the right person or if they're not. And, that's totally fine too. But I think that's an important element of it too, is that it's not this like huge commitment level of courtship where it's basically like you're already, approaching the parents with like, I really want to marry this person and I want to get to know them and I'm going to marry them, but rather, entering it with the perspective of, this is somebody, they kind of meet kind of the basic qualifications, and I want to get to know them as more than a friend to find out if they maybe are that teammate for life. So kind of a combination of the two of, it kind of being dating, but still going into it with a, Christian and godly perspective of just being wise about it. And like Bethany said, not isolating yourself from the other groups, from like your family, your friend circles, whatever that are also really important for continuing to provide insight. Like we talked about in the last episode, you can check the YouTube card in the top left corner, top right hand corner, and you can catch like a little bit more that we talk about the importance of being friends first before dating.
It's all about where your heart's at. And we know that the Bible says that God searches our hearts.
Bottom line, we want to set you guys up for success and you to set your relationships up for success and to live in God's abundance. That's all we got for you today, so tune in next week. If you're getting any value out of this channel, make sure to hit that subscribe button and share us with your family and friends on all those social medias. Tune in next week. We'll see you then. Woo!